Welcome to the Cynical Marketers podcast, where the greatest minds in marketing, we think, discuss marketing for an audience of several. And now, your hosts, Mike and Nada. All right, everybody, welcome again to another episode of the Cynical Marketers, episode 13.
Lucky 13.
Lucky 13. Here we go. The march continues. So this week, or in this episode, we're going to talk about mistakes that we see businesses make. These are three crucial ones. You know, Nada and I have been talking. We work with several clients, and we've done this for years. You know, we were thinking about this, like, you know, what are some of these mistakes that we see often? Because we're watching this, and we were watching this with a couple of folks that we had talked to, and we begun following their social media and stuff, and we're like, man, that's tough. You know, so these are some common mistakes. If you're a business owner out there, have you made any of these mistakes? Maybe.
You
know, and
I think everybody
we'll explain
has
why we think these are mistakes too.
Yeah.
You know,
I think everybody has to some extent.
Yeah.
Like sometimes
Including us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your well-meaning and work and life get in the way of doing things that you know you should be doing and so on. So, yeah.
You know, when I say including us, that's one of those reasons, you know, we're obviously agency people. So I like to be hired because I like people to pay me money because I use that to pay bills and put food in my mouth.
True.
So I enjoy it when people hire me. But one of the things is like, you're paying for the knowledge that we had and somebody else paid us for mistakes that we've learned in our past.
Right.
So now hopefully when you hire us, you don't have to pay for those mistakes again. You know,
Yeah.
So that's one of the benefits.
One of the benefits would work. Well, and I think we're also very transparent in how we talk about marketing. And it is something that, and I think you've said this in other episodes, it's not something that people like to hear. They don't want to hear, hey, you got to do this, you know, this is going to take time. This, you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to get the results that you want. There, you can't skip steps. You know, I think sometimes people, and that's the first thing you're going to talk about today, Mike, right?
Yeah.
Like the strategy component. People want to skip to the revenue without having to go through the process. And we see it like over and over
That's the
again.
first mistake that we see. And this is, if anyone were to work with us, this is one of the first things that we talk about. It is the first thing. The rest of it doesn't really work unless you do strategy first.
Always,
you know, and we see
strategy
so
first.
many businesses out there, they get started and they just start executing tactics and they don't really have a plan or strategy. So they'll post a little bit on social media. We make a couple of videos. We do some funny posts. What should we be doing? Who are we talking to? There's no real strategy behind anything. So then what we see then is businesses who bounce around
Yep.
from idea to idea. And they never give anything time to work. They don't get enough information to know to make good decisions on.
To
And they
understand
just
why
kind of
something
flounder.
may not have worked or why something may have worked. Yeah. And this is, I think with strategy, one thing that we have seen consistently businesses not do is revisit the strategy. And so even if initially when you get started, you sit down, you go like, okay, I'm starting this business. This is all my, you know, this is my client avatar or whatever, you know, different terminology that people have for these things. You know, that is not something that you set and forget either. You
Right.
have to go back to it. And I think we've seen that over and over again when people get up to a certain point and they plateau in their revenue. They're like, oh, I'm going to try all these other things. This guy says my, you know, SEO can 10x my traffic and things like that. And often you forget, like, wait a second, let me step back. What is my, you know, mission here with this business? And I hate to use that word because I think it means different things to different people. But like, what is the actual strategy behind what I'm trying to do?
Am I talking to anymore? And
Right.
has it changed? And when
Has
you
it
first start your
changed? How
business,
has it
maybe
changed? Yeah.
you might have an idea of who an ideal customer is for you, but your customers in the market actually will dictate to you.
They do
what's going to
indeed.
work
I
and
mean,
not.
I think we've seen that from personal experience running our own businesses in the past too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
What do
we
people
have
want?
seen
You
that.
think maybe you know,
Right.
but the customer is going to tell you
But when
what they want, what they don't want.
right. And when I had, you know, the business that Manny and I had several years back, 2017, 2018 to 2020, you know, we started off as wanting to do digital digital media for folks, photos, videos, very quickly in the market that we were in and the customers we were talking to demanded something different. So you have to be able to pivot. But when you pivot, and we pivoted into print media of all things, and actually we're pretty successful doing that. But then you have to sit back down and go, okay, let me take a step back. I got to redo my strategy now. Now I'm offering different things. How has my product offering, my service offering changed? So I have to speak to my customer differently. My customer is different. They're demanding something of me that I didn't even know they needed, right? So you have to go back to the basics and you have to do your strategy, do it and redo it, really. If you're pivoting, if you're adding products or services, if you're expanding into different markets, if you're wanting to grow.
It all starts there. And if you don't do it, everything else you do, maybe work, maybe you stumble into something, certainly. There's,
Right.
But you run a real risk of wasting a lot of time, effort, energy, and money.
Which you don't have any of
And
those
then
things to
you might be
waste if you're
upset
an
with your results
entrepreneur.
and like,
Right.
why am I not getting results? I don't understand it. So it all starts with strategy. That is mistake number one that we see from a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
All right. What's number two?
This one is my favorite.
This is your area. Yeah.
This is let's spend all of our money on acquisition efforts and then not have anything set up for retention or have very little set up for retention. So, I see a lot of posts and folks on LinkedIn are acting like they've invented email marketing and they're talking about email is not dead and things like that. And email marketing is great if you know how to use it properly. But what we're seeing folks do a lot is, they're so interested. Of course, you need new customers. That's a given, right? And you have to really work on your acquisition efforts and acquisition channels and so on. But now that you've acquired a customer, what will you do with them? What are your retention efforts? And what we see consistently, and I've spoken about this for years, is folks doing email and SMS and batch and blast. Like that ended roughly 10 years ago. If you are still batching and blasting, I only know of one company, that I have worked with in the last 10 years that has the most engaged email list. It had about 87% of all of their email subscribers have interacted with their emails in the last 60 days. Those numbers are unheard of. That is the only company that I have ever seen, never experienced in all of my 25 years in retention. I've never seen that happen, actually. But for the rest of the folks, you cannot spend money. What was that?
The catalog company?
No, this was actually junk food clothing.
Junk food clothing, yeah.
They're absolutely amazing. But the effort that goes into their retention efforts, the design, the speaking to the customer, the lifestyle photo shoots, how they know their customer really, really well. So when they engage with their customer, the customer wants to listen. Absolutely astounding retention numbers for them. But nobody else has those numbers that I know of. And so I would see people really do a lot of effort on acquisition, a lot on paid search, paid media, Google, Meta. They will live there and they will put a whole bunch of money behind those things. And then when it comes to retention efforts, they batch and blast every campaign. They don't segment people based on acquisition channels, based on acquisition interests, based on previous purchases, based on engagement. They will batch and blast every email, every SMS message. They won't find value in loyalty. I've argued with people over loyalty programs. They don't find any value in loyalty. They don't do loyalty programs. I take this one personally, right? Because I have lived in the retention side of things for a very long time. But it doesn't do you any good if you acquire a customer and then you don't nurture them and don't do it properly.
There's no excuse to batch and blast these days, right? We get enough information. Once somebody becomes a customer, you get enough info, you should be able to do better. What we see and what I've seen over the years for businesses who tend to do that is because they don't have anybody within the org necessarily whose focus is on retention. It is usually an add-on job for somebody else. So they're like, well, I only have time this week to do this one, so we're just going to blast it to everybody.
Right.
I don't have time to sit and segment this and think of a plan for each of our segments and do all this, right? That's what I have seen a lot in businesses where email is an add-on job
It's
or
an
somebody
add-on
else?
job, or they have somebody whose job is to just set up and send the email and not actually drive any strategy behind retention efforts.
Yeah.
So
Somebody above tells them, here's our new product this week. Send this out to everybody.
send this out to everybody, right?
Let me
Here,
know how it
design
goes.
made this hero. Go ahead, put that in an email and send it out. And it's honestly, it is just painful to watch, because that is how you end up with a ton of first-time customers, very, very low retention and repeat customer rate.
People want to feel that you understand them and get them. If you
Right.
just keep blasting them over and over and over with products that don't matter to them really
Right.
either.
And there's
you
no
know?
excuse for it either, because every email, every SMS tool. So I'm very, I'm very hands-on with Klaviyo, very hands-on with PostScript for SMS, love both of the platforms. There is absolutely no excuse for you to do that, right?
Yeah.
PostScript actually for SMS launched their AI tool, which, I've been a skeptic of AI for marketing and for retargeting for a very long time, but I've seen it used on several clients and I've seen it really work. And it's very intentional in terms of what you're presenting to the customer. It's products that they've browsed on your website. It's pages they've interacted with on landing pages, different things like that. Leverage the customization options within the tools that you're using. It is simple. If you take time to learn those, and you can, I feel like anybody can learn them, right? Like, I feel like it's a doable thing. You can definitely learn how to use these retention tools. Learn them, use them. Do not batch and blast. It is my absolute, and I can tell when I subscribe to emails, and I have a whole inbox just to be an email subscriber from various brands. I can tell when I've been batched and blasted messaging,
Yeah.
especially from places that I've actually purchased from. And I'm not just signed up on the list to get the email just to see what they're doing for their retention efforts, right? Especially places where I interact with. If you're sending me, things that, my biggest pet peeve is, there's a company that I continue to get SMS marketing from that I've made, and this was a substantial purchase, right, from them. And they only sell this one product, and I've purchased the product, and they continue to send me sales messages. Like, okay, but I only need one of this, right? Like it was one of those things that was like a medical thing, right? And so it was one of those things that it was like, I only need one of these. I'm not going to buy this product again. Why do you insist on sending me sales messages? I'm already a customer. So it's an interesting thing to me that I'm just like, who is running your business? Like, what are you all doing over there? I take that stuff personally. I'm just like, oh, let me tell you how I could fix this for you. But,
I think the mistake businesses make with their email and SMS list too is looking at it solely as it's just a revenue channel to just beat up until if they unsubscribe, great. But, we need to make X amount of money from our email list.
No.
So, if you have 50,000 people on an email list and you have a product where you're saying you get messaging too from brands where you're like, that doesn't fit me at all. On their side, when they're thinking of the send, like, well, why wouldn't I send it to all 50,000 people? I've got a better chance of making more money. Even if I know 20,000 of these people have never bought that type of product or in that category or anything similar to it.
Yeah.
And are unlikely to be interested in this. So like,
I
don't know, let's send it to them because what if they are?
Right.
You're missing 4 sales.
In that catalog company that you mentioned, Mike, I used to have my CMO from there. We would send 3 emails, three a day to essentially the same list. And me and the email marketing manager at the time were like, oh my God, like we are beating the heck out of these lists. This is not an effective way to do marketing. And she would argue with us and she would say things like, and this was a CMO, right? Somebody who has been in that role for many years, but mostly supported this company before it went digital, right? Some years ago. And she would be like, well, the more emails you send them, the more likely they are to convert. And I'm like, no, this is not a catalog situation where the more catalogs you send, the more likely they are to be like, oh, wait, let me browse through one of these, right? And it would be a constant argument. Like you have to, if you're going to invest the time, the effort, and especially the money that it takes to acquire a new customer that you're going to put into your acquisition channels, then you need to invest the same type of energy and the same type of money into retention because it is equally as important. And just because,
Oh, it's
and unless you're running one of those like white label businesses that we had talked about before, where we see this a lot on TikTok shops and different places where you're like, I know this business is going to be around for 6 months and then they're going to shut things down. They're in it to make a quick buck and move on, right? So retention is not important. But if you are a brand, then, oh my God, your retention efforts are critical. Like you cannot
if you want to be
spend
around at all. Because obviously,
Yes.
the old axiom, it's cheaper to keep a customer than it is to acquire a new one.
Yes.
And that's still the thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to acquire new customers.
Yeah.
People take it for granted. And
Yeah.
I've always felt, because I always, like, to me, an email address, when somebody chooses to give you an email address,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, businesses do not respect that decision enough because
Or
people
their
just
phone
don't like to hand
number.
those things out.
Or the phone number.
Yeah, or
That
phone
is-
number, right?
oh my
Like, I'm not
gosh.
giving you my phone number.
Yeah.
Like,
And if
most people
you're not,
assume if I give you either one of those things, I'm just going to get spammed to death by you because that's what most businesses do. So people
right.
they hold on to those. So
Yeah.
if you actually get somebody to do that for you, you should respect it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but no businesses do. And
No,
people
and
don't
it's
because the CEO is telling me I got X sales goal to hit this month.
right.
What do you want me to do?
So
You know?
yeah, and I mean, I think definitely you need to be more intentional with retention, but also do all the retention efforts, right? I see people fall short so much on this. Do your email segmentation, do your SMS segmentation, have a loyalty program. People love if they have purchased from you, especially more than once. And this is, we've done, I think, Mike, you've talked about this. We've been in the fashion e-commerce space for a very long time in some capacity or another, on the client side, on running our own businesses, on the client side, on the agency side. If you are a brand that people have purchased more than once from, you need a loyalty program.
Oh my gosh.
You need to recognize those folks. I mean, like, you need to recognize those folks.
To get
And don't fake a loyalty
repurchase,
program
too,
either.
today.
People hate to be called VIPs if they're not actual VIPs. Have a legitimate loyalty program. It's so easy to set those things up.
And you don't take it for granted that you will ever get a repurchase from somebody.
Exactly.
There's
Yep.
so much competition out there in every market and space. Unless you've invented a totally new product, which is rare.
Which is rare. Right.
Not many businesses out there doing that. Most of us are doing things that we have competitors in. So for you to get a purchase then and somebody to say, I'm going to trust you with this, I'm going to give you money, I'm going to trust you here, you fulfill that and they come back
Yeah.
and purchase again? Like, that's so big, and people have no respect for
No,
the
they really
consumer.
don't. Yeah.
So-
No, they really don't. I mean, we've seen it so much, right? Like, and just dumping all of your budget into paid to acquire new customers. Eventually that strategy is it's not going to work long term. You just really need a solid retention strategy, solid attention effort in as many channels as you can be in, right? That's just, that's my biggest pet peeve is when they don't, when businesses don't have retention.
I worked for a gym company in Kansas City, and this was a problem. This exact thing. It was a lot of focus on getting new members, and there wasn't so much to keep people.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, you need to retain these
Right.
folks here because you're a local business. There are only so many people in the Kansas City area who live within a close enough radius of this gym that will make it worth it for them to
join
drive
you.
to it and use it. That's a pretty small audience.
Right.
And if we're going to run paid, we're going to reach that audience quickly.
Right.
So
then, what are you doing to retain them?
how else, who else can you attract? You need to have massive retention efforts.
Yeah. Massive.
And they didn't. And they're not around anymore, that gym. But
Shocker.
okay. Focus on retention as hard as you do acquisition, everybody.
Absolutely.
That's mistake 2. Mistake number 3.
Oof.
What is it?
Discounts. Chasing revenue over profitability. I've seen so many good brands drive themselves into the ground over this. I think we mentioned in one of the podcasts, in the podcast that we talked about, how when a political climate change or economics change around your business, how you can't continue to chase discounts. Right. I have seen so many amazing brands beat up their email list, their SMS list, driving discounts. A lot of folks are focused on revenue. And like you said, Mike, like chasing that revenue goal and not realizing that chasing the revenue and getting the revenue does not mean you're a profitable business. And I've seen this with so many, okay, we're going to cut down on the acquisition. This is why both are important, right? Like if we got to cut down our budget or we have to like backtrack a little bit, we're having a difficult time in our business, whatever it is, let's send the emails. Let's beat up the email list. Let's beat up the SMS list. And then again, not segment and just batch and blast and then start doing discounts. And once you start the discounts, you start with 20%, then the customer is going to get burnt out by seeing 20% off, then you go to 25, then you go to 30. Like, where is the limit?
You run sales constantly.
And I have seen that chasing that monthly revenue goal that you've set for yourself. I've recently worked with two businesses that I can't name, right? We won't name them, but I've recently worked with two of them, both women's fashion brands. Very strict revenue goals assigned by the company investors, right? So it's like, we have to hit this revenue goal. We're at the 21st of the month. We're not going to hit the revenue goal. What are we going to do? Let's do a site-wide sale because that's an easy way to drive revenue. So now you're offering 30% off, or you're offering like a BOGO type promotion or whatever it is. And you're training your customer to wait to the end of the month, because this is what folks respond to, right? They will wait to the end of the month to say, but they're going to send me a 30% off, And then what happens is, great, you hit that revenue goal, but at the expense of your margin. And then when you send the next message promoting the new thing that just came in that's full priced and great, nobody's going to care because they're going to wait for you to do the sale next time that you're not hitting that revenue goal. And I have seen brands spiral from this. And one of the big brands that also I can't name, but a huge fashion brand that was actually very, very huge in the 90s and early 2000s, now no longer has brick and mortar stores and relies on wholesale and .com only. They spent about a year doing this, where they would literally, anytime the revenue was trending lower, they would offer 25% off site-wide. Right? And with this brand, people would be like, yeah, I want 25% off site-wide. And they would shop and their revenue would go up. And what happened is then the management changed and the strategy changed in the business. And they came in the next fiscal year and they said, look, we are done. We have looked at our profits. We were not profitable last year because we were discounting so much. We cut into our margins. Now we have to only send messages about full price. And we're only going to do discounts during special events like a Memorial Day sale or Black Friday, Cyber Monday. No email revenue whatsoever for like solid 6 or 7 months. And you're sitting there and you're like, you did this to yourself. Don't do this to yourself as a business. Do not chase
all those people
revenue
they acquired in that previous year. Your problem with offering discounts and stuff like that is you're acquiring customers then who only purchased you because
of the discount.
You were on a discount. So they don't actually see any value in you. They're not connected to you in any way, right? It was on sale. So they're like, yeah, I'll take a shot at this. But
gosh, it is
and then your competitors see you do a 20% off sale, and now your competitor's like, hey, I'm losing sales this weekend to those guys. Let's do a 25.
Right.
We'll do a 25%, and then you got to do a 30, and then you see this in the Black Friday, Cyber Monday time now, the arms race of discounts. I think last year we actually saw a turn back on the crazy discounts, but there was an arms race to the bottom,
right?
Because that's all you're doing.
It's such a dangerous way to position your brand.
Yeah,
and it's such a dangerous way to position your brand.
At Grunt Style, this was a hard line for us when we were at Grunt Style, and this was a Dan Alaric, and I do this still today. You have to be profitable from the first purchase,
right?
Not
don't get me started on lifetime value stuff, Mike.
Not it's okay to acquire a customer at a loss and make it up in lifetime value. Yes, we just talked in error 2 about not focusing on it, which you definitely should. But again, there's so much competition. You are never guaranteed a second purchase, even if you are doing the right things to try to build loyalty. Right. Nobody owes you any purchases, and you can do all the right things in marketing and messaging to people and still not win.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be profitable from the first
You
purchase.
have to, and
protect
it's
those
wild
margins.
to me when people do not realize that you are, in essence, devaluing your brand. Like, I think discounts are great. Look, like, give discounts to your loyalists, give discounts to your VIPs, right? Offer them first dibs at new product, offer them, early access to sales. Great stuff. But if you are running a site-wide sale every other week, you are training your customer to wait for that discount. And you are devaluing your brand. You're saying our stuff is not worth the full price we're charging you for, that we're charging.
Yeah. Right.
So,
if you're able to do this all the time, are you Kohl's pricing us here where
right.
you're accounting for your discounts, so you jack up your prices so that you can just evergreen discount everything?
Right.
And
it's interesting to me because, and I had mentioned junk food, and I really do want to give them props because they're an amazing team of people there who just run their business so well strategically. And I think they understand their customer and they understand when to do sales and what type of things to put on sale and the seasonality of their product. I think I can say this. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but on the flip side of that, I see so many people in that space who just don't understand who their customer is and just think that, like, if I just give 25, 30% off site-wide, people will buy. Great. Okay. You got some sales, but are those sales actually profitable? What is your profit? Like, first of all, know all your stuff, like know your profit margins, know your cost, your acquisition costs, know your, shipping, operational.
What
all that
does your
stuff.
acquisition cost need to be at to be able to pay your bills? And
but
as a
be
side note,
strategic.
Keep your overhead under control.
Yeah, be strategic how you are doing your promotions, right? Because, the truth is, in a lot of fashion spaces, unless somebody specifically wants fast fashion, they'll go to Temu and Shein and, the likes, right? But if you are a brand and you're building a brand, know your customer, know the value of your brand. Stop driving your brand into the ground with discount after discount after discount after discount, because you won't recover from that. 6 months of that.
Louis Vuitton does not run sales. Right? They say, like, hey, if you want this is what you're going to pay for it.
It's wild to me because, like, people don't understand that short-term gain of that revenue will ultimately bury your business. If you're running a 25% off site-wide once a month throughout the year, what are you doing on Black Friday, Cyber Monday? What's your discount then?
This is a business who has an agency who the agency tells them about ROAS, return on ad spend, and focuses on that number. Because I'm always said, like, no, you do not look at ROAS, really. It's an interesting number, but do not run your business on it, because ROAS will run you out of business.
Right. And, like, look, if you're going to run your discounts, run them in a strategic way, right? Like, I have seen brands do, 20% off this collection, 25% off this, 15 off this. Like, understand what your margins are and yes, it's a lot more complicated to set up on the back end occasionally, but exclude things sometimes that you're not going to make any money off of with the discounts. And really, to me, the only time you should be running a discount is if there is an event, if you want to give a treat to your, like, VIPs, if there's something going on. Otherwise, look, rotate your inventory and put stuff on sale and then promote your sale, right? Like, for seasonality purposes, hey, last season's stuff is on sale now. That's typical retail stuff that everybody does in store anyway. But stop using your email and SMS and loyalty to run discount over discount over discount. You won't be in business in a year. Or you will, but you'll just run at a discount all the time. You won't sell anything at a full price.
You better watch your overhead too if you're gonna run that stuff. And that's a mistake but businesses don't watch their overhead enough. But okay. Well, those are the 3 mistakes, everybody. If you're a business owner out there, have you done these things? If you're still listening at this point here, we appreciate it.
Right. We definitely do.
And we've seen these things and we've done them.
Yeah. Just learn from the things that we've known and we've seen. Learn from other people's mistakes. Sometimes better than your own,
You're chasing revenue, man. I'll tell you, you see this again, that profit margin thing. You can watch revenue climb, and if that's the only thing that you're watching, you could have your best month in revenue, and if you don't know what your margins were, you might actually be selling yourself out of business. And then when it's time, you're buying the materials now to make that stuff, all of a sudden you're like, I don't have the money to, where'd all the money go?
Right. No,
I don't have the money to pay payroll.
revenue is not a number to chase at expense of profitability. And if you're constantly discounting your brand, you're essentially saying we are not worth the full price we charge.
Stay profitable.
Stay profitable.
Profit before growth. And unless you're VC backed and you get a long runway to do it, and you have someone else's money to play with.
It doesn't happen often.
You know,
but if
otherwise,
if you are in that group, good for you. But
yeah, I know.
most
More power to you.
You know,
you allowed a vampire into your house, and you got other problems if you got a VC on you now. But yeah, stay profitable, profit before growth, and then incremental growth, where you're always making sure that you're managing these three things so that you are always profitable, because you can sell yourself out of business.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
All right. Here we go.
Thanks, guys.
End of another episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You made it to this point. Catch us again on YouTube, on Spotify,
all of our socials, TikTok,
social media.
LinkedIn.
We're out there. We appreciate it. We appreciate the listens. We are growing slowly here.
We are. And we're having fun doing it.
Yeah. Hey, it's fun. And we appreciate everyone who has listened. So this has been a fun journey. One of the things I said about podcasts is, like, it takes a lot of time. People make mistakes. People always make mistakes in marketing, but people look at podcasts and think Joe Rogan came out of nowhere.
Oh, Joe Rogan's been at that for a long time.
Right? Whatever you think about him, I don't care about that stuff. But you know, or any of these big
maybe
people,
not the
Mr.
best
Beast,
example, but yeah,
Mr. Beast, whoever.
Yeah, it's honestly, this has been a fun experience, and I love being able to share our. You know, yes, we are cynical to some extent, but we've been around the block and then some. This is not as they say, this is not our first rodeo. I love being able to not gatekeep a lot of these things. And also I love being honest with businesses, because all I see is 10x, 10x, 10x. I can 10x your sales, 10x your traffic. And it's just like, I'm so tired of that messaging. Both of us as former business owners, we know.
On the client side.
Yes, and client side and agency. Like, we've done all the things. You know, happy to share 20 plus years from each of our experiences. So thank you guys for listening.
There we go. Another Cynical Marketers. Tune in next week. We'll be back. We'll see you guys. Thank you.